welcome to another installment of Chocolate Chat. My name is Chocolate Yoddah, spelled Y-O-D-D-A-H, because film studios are litigious. And my guest today is Kyndra. She is a comedian and a free spirit, as her online name indicates. And we're going to talk today about one of the topics that we cover a lot on this show, which is, of course, relationships. Because I was intrigued by your perspective, and I only got the tip of the iceberg on it, so I wanted to hear more. So before we get into it, just introduce yourself, tell us about your social media and all that stuff.
Yes, Kyndra Crump. Born and raised in Atlanta. I got my little diploma right there, as you can see. All right, graduated from Clark Atlanta University. So the goal is to have my own radio and television show, and I'm going back to school in January to Georgia State.
Oh, nice.
And I'm gonna be on the road to receiving my PhD in child psychology.
Wow.
So
okay.
That's pretty much it with that.
Yeah, I only brushed up against child psychology briefly when I studied psych, and I still do. I read articles and studies all the time about it. I'm very fascinated by it. And child psych is interesting. The way they perceive the world is very interesting and very different than how adults do. So anyway, beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, I saw that you had some ideas about relationships, and I'm sure some people might accuse you of not being a feminist and all that, and give you feedback on it. I think they're wrong by the true definition of feminism. But talk to me about how you feel like how does it work with men and women in relationships? What do you think are best practices for women to keep men, or maybe talk about the mistakes that women make as you see them?
All right, so my ADHD kicked in, so I'm going to try to answer the best that I can answer. All right, so let me just say this as far as with relationships. I think honesty is the best policy. Let people know up front what you want. The best relationships come from friendships, like natural, organic friendships, okay? The problem is, I have this thing where guys will be like, hey, I'm interested in you, and I'm like, you don't even know what my real first and last name is. How are you going to say that you're interested in me? Just say I find you attractive and I would like to see if you would like to, go forth with, something. That's all you got to say.
That's interesting.
At that point, that's when I'm going to be like, okay, I'm just going to keep it real with you. I like men with money. Do you have that? Because let's keep it all the way real. Okay. Every woman likes a financially stable man. That's what we want. We don't like, you can go ahead and pay for, a meal at Applebee's. Okay. You can pay for that. You can pay for that. Anybody can do that. But I look at it like this. Would you rather cry in Detroit or Dubai? Okay. Okay. With that also being said, I think that the fact of the matter is, speaking on the money fact, women, listen, just because, like I said, we all like a financially stable man, does not mean that you have to sit here and the first day say, hey, if you want my number, you're going to have to give me some money type stuff. Now, I've done that to a guy, and I'm going to tell y'all why I've done that to a guy. I know you might be going to be like, Kyndra, you a hypocrite. I'm about to tell you why. There was this man who was older man, like really older man, weirdo type person, okay? So the best way, if you want a man to leave you alone, I'll ask him for some money. But just coming up to him and saying, oh, give me $1,000, pay my rent and I'll give you my phone number. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Just let them know up front what your intentions are. Let them know what you will and will not tolerate. But I let him know. I said, hey, man, just give me $20. I'll give you my phone number. He didn't even have $20 to give me. It ain't gonna work. And he was weird. I have this thing about people who, like, you can wave at me one time, but if you see me all throughout the day, don't be waving at me every time you see me. Like, I don't like, stop. Just don't do that. But no, anyway, back to the story.
Okay.
So I think the thing about it is let people know up front. And then on top of that, make sure you are actually real deal, ready to, like, date. definitely say about that. Like, you need to be for sure if you're actually interested in dating. Don't sit here and try to make it seem like you interested in me and you really not. That's the thing about that. That's what I have a problem with. These people who want to be fake with the whole "I'm interested in you" type of situation going on.
Okay, so the premise was honesty is the best policy. So let me give you an example of honesty and see and you can tell me if this in general is something that you think would work for women. So most guys are visually oriented, and our honest reaction when we first see a woman is, I want to have sex with that woman. So if you want honesty, then the most honest thing a man could say to you is, hi, I want to have sex with you. So does that work for you?
No. And again, that's cool as well. And then you know what? This is what I do. I'm going to tell you what my toxic trait is, okay? My toxic trait is asking you multiple questions to figure out why you're a weirdo. And except if you send me an unsolicited penis picture. Y'all need to stop doing that. That's not the way, don't do that, okay? But I had this guy yesterday. I told him about himself back in May, so I figured that he would leave me alone. But what happened was he came back 7 months later, and he said to me, are you still being mean? Not even trying to give me no apology. And I said to him, what's going on? He's like, I'm just trying to figure out. He's like, I would like to, get to know you. I said, and do what? What is your definition of getting to know me? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to chill with you. Okay, tell me your definition. Go out to events and then, other stuff, like maybe have sex. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not interested in having sex with you. He's like, well, then if you ain't interested, then I'm not going to be investing all my time in you, and we're not going to get that part. And I said to him, I said, sir, you already turned me off when you actually thought, and this is something else I want to say as well. People need to stop coming into a situation, man and woman, stop putting yourself out there in order to say, hey, I'm interested in a relationship with you, if you do not have yourself together. Within the first day of us having a conversation, he asked me if I drive, and I said, why are you asking this? He's like, just interested in knowing, so you can come and pick me up. And I said, pick you up? I said, why would you even think that that's okay? You're the one trying to get my attention and make me want to be interested in you. He said to me, oh, it's because, I would do the same thing if you didn't have a car. And I'm like, but why would you put yourself out there? Just because you would do it doesn't mean that I should do it. He says, I look at it like this. And he tells me this present day. And after I let him know about himself 7 months ago, he tells me about himself present day. He says that whenever two people are in some type of, real deal with each other, they should, compromise should happen, so that's the thing about it. I'm not that type of guy. Y'all women, y'all want, guys to give y'all the world, but you can't give us what we want. He says stuff like the way that you're just so, difficult. Basically he was calling me like an angry black woman on the low. He's like, you're so difficult. You push men away. And listen, let me tell you something. He's not even attractive. Okay. So he should be grateful I'm in his presence. All right. Back to the story. So with that being said as well, I had ended up saying to him, I said, let me tell you something. You're living in this fairy tale world where you are coming back to people that you know for a fact are out of your league in multiple ways. And you're coming back to people trying to holler at them, and you're upset that I'm not going to try to give you sex. Sir, this is also something people need to understand. Sex should happen naturally. What's folks out here begging for? Can we please do it? You look lame, sir. You look like a goofy.
Okay? So let's kind of try to address a couple of ideas there. So you started off with the premise of honesty being the best policy, and then when I gave you an example of honesty, you said that wouldn't work. So this is part of the conflict with all of these rules and roadblocks that people are putting up for relationships. I think back to, since I'm very interested in anthropology along with psychology, and I look at early man or early people, and they didn't have all these rules. If you look at mammals, how they get together, it's generally they see each other, they circle around each other, sniff each other out. Then maybe, the man has to perform a feat of strength, or he has to battle another dude or whatever. And it's pretty straightforward as far as getting together with the opposite sex. And what I see now, and for a long time, is that there's all these rules that are based on nothing. They're based mostly on religious concepts and social concepts, but have nothing to do with how human beings really are. So the reality is that if a man sees you and says he wants to have sex with you, that is honesty, right? But even though you and other women that I speak to, they usually start off with that whole honesty is the best policy thing, but it seems like honesty is the last thing that actually is attractive to you.
Let me say something. Again, like I said, that's honesty is the best policy, but let me ask you something. And I want you to keep it real with me, okay? Keep it 100 with me. Do I look like the good times girl to you?
I have no idea what that question means, but that
means
do
I look like an easy woman?
That very idea of an easy woman is the kind of social construct that I'm talking about. That's just something made up by people. It has nothing to do with human behavior in reality.
So you can't sniff out if a woman is a gold digger. You can't sniff out if a woman is an easy woman. You can't sniff out if a woman has is a difficult woman. You can't.
I don't worry about any of that stuff. But what I'm talking about is the reality of men and women, and the truth behind men and women, right? And so the truth, because that's what you started with, was honesty, right? So the truth is that when men see a woman, that's all they need to know is if they find that woman attractive physically, and then they want to have sex with that woman. That's the reality of human beings, and it always has been, right? So going back to the idea of honesty, if that's how humans are, which they clearly are, then why isn't behaving the way we are acceptable? Why do we have to get into all this other stuff that has nothing to do with how humans are? There doesn't need to be.
What other stuff are you talking about?
There doesn't need to be an evaluation of whether a woman is easy or whether a woman is a gold digger. That's unnecessary. That's the kind of thing that you'll find out as you get to know each other, if you decide to get to know each other. But the reality of attraction is, I see you, I'm attracted to you, I want to have sex with you. That's the reality. And women are the same. Our sex drives are different. There's no question about it, but our desire for sex is essentially the same.
No, and again, like I said, that's I feel like an evaluation is good, because here's the thing, right? There's a thing called soul ties. I don't think a lot of guys or people in general realize how serious that is. Soul ties are serious. Soul ties are real. And the fact of the matter is that you have to be careful with whom you decide to, trade souls with. And some people just sit here and they just want to go from one person to the next person. That's why you need to have an evaluation to figure out who you are entering inside.
Well,
and
here's the thing. You hit a good point, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you said who you are, you reminded me of something. Who you are is the personality. It's the different quirks and realities of your personality, which is fine. What I'm talking about is what we are. Right. And I don't know what soul ties are. I've never heard of them, but it sounds like something made up.
So it comes from it's a religious thing in a way, but it also comes from, like, let me ask you something. Have you ever had relations with a woman and afterwards you felt lifeless because she has so much toxicness within her?
No.
Okay. And again, it doesn't hit everybody, but a lot of people, they have felt a certain way. But I think the thing about it is that I think before you decide to intertwine, with each other, I think it's best to figure out who that person is. Because there are some people out here who are mentally unstable. and you're like, okay, well, she's very attractive. And this is why I think a lot of guys, I feel like it's a ego thing. That's why no man has ever hit a home run with me, because, you know, I'm a sapiosexual, you know, so if you can't hold a, you know, intellectual conversation with me, there's nothing that we are going to end up doing anyway.
Right. And for folks that don't know what
most
that
I'll
means,
do is just give you a hug.
Yeah. For folks who don't know what that means, it's someone attracted to intelligence.
Yes.
So, if early man, I keep saying early man because that's an old term, but if early people, if early humans had these kinds of rules, do you think the species would have survived?
Probably not.
Right.
I think what happens is people started waking up and realizing, I feel like there was just that ding in their brain that made them think, this isn't cool. This isn't right. I want him to get to know me first, or I want her to get to know me first, type of thing. I think somebody along the way, there was a light bulb that popped up in their head.
Right. And that light bulb, as you alluded to earlier, was probably religion. That's when the idea of shame and guilt, more like what you described earlier, this feeling of lifelessness or what have you, that comes from judging your own behavior. And that judgment generally comes from religious rules and social rules. And those rules generally have nothing to do with what human beings are. You know, if you acknowledge the idea that the species wouldn't have survived with these rules, then you have to start questioning the rules. Because if these rules made sense, if these rules worked, and they're very common, and I hear this everywhere, that these are the rules that people need to follow in order to be with each other, then why are so many people so unhappy in their relationships? Why do 50% of marriages fail, 68% of which are initiated, divorces rather, are initiated by women? So if all these rules work so well, why are relationships failing so badly?
Because I think people go into a relationship not knowing who they are nor the other person. Therapy is needed. There's a lot of, that's why I'm doing the psychology thing, because it's a lot of adults out here who are not where they're supposed to be mentally.
Right. But therapy didn't exist in early man, and early man did very well.
And you know what I think? I think what it is as well, I think a lot of people are, what ends up happening? I think what happens is people will just go with the flow. There were certain people, I'm pretty sure back in the day, they didn't like what was going on. They didn't like the, you know, rules that, okay, or the lack thereof of rules when it comes to relationships. They just went with it. But I'm pretty sure there were certain people who did that. But one day somebody woke up many thousands of years later who said, hey, this isn't cool. You're not going to talk to me like that. I have an issue with the fact that you say that we're together, but you have a whole nother baby with somebody else down the street. I have an issue with that.
Yeah. And, and again, that issue comes from rules that have nothing to do with human behavior, because the fact is that humans are designed to have multiple children with multiple women. That's the way.
Who says humans are designed that way?
Anthropology in the entirety of human history.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. Do you typically, so would you consider yourself polyamorous?
I tend to be a serial monogamous.
Okay.
Yeah. But in general, in general, polyamory is the default setting for humans. And again, and by the way, if you look into evolutionary biology, this is all spelled out very clearly. This is how we are. This is what we are as a species. And this is, and I'm glad we're having this conversation in this way, because this is the stuff that I like to address in my coaching with people, to get them to break out of these very limiting rules that don't contribute to their happiness.
You know what I think the thing is, right? You stated that we're meant to have multiple children with multiple people. Mm-hmm. Why should that be okay when what happens
because that's the reality of the species.
I'm going to give you an example. I was listening to, I've come across a few people who have told me, and these are rappers, not told me per se, the rappers, not told me, but listening to them on interviews, and then other people I've come across who have a lot of kids by multiple women, and they have to deal with that bitter baby mama drama. They, the kids are in multiple states, having to go ahead and go across state, traveling, spending so much money unnecessarily to go see their kids. And like, who wants to deal with that? Why not stay in one home with the same person?
Well, that anecdotal evidence doesn't mean anything in the face of, the study of evolutionary biology. So if a few people have a hard time maintaining multiple people in multiple states, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the design of human beings.
So do you feel like it's not normal? Why do you, because this is, you're the first person to tell me this, and I'm what's so crazy? Sometimes I feel like we all think the same with certain things, and I hear one person who disagrees with everything. So I would have never actually known this had you never said this, because I'm thinking to myself, why should you have multiple kids in multiple states by multiple women and everything else? Like, why is that okay?
You're throwing in the multiple states in, but let's kind of.
I'm just saying sometimes that does happen.
No, I understand that, but let's bring it back to original humans. There weren't multiple states. There was generally villages of 100 to 150 people. And that saying that it takes a village to raise a child is actually exactly how it used to work. The village is who raised the child. It didn't, the survival of the species was partly predicated on the idea of having as many babies as possible. And the instincts that humans are born with don't limit them to one partner, men or women, right? So this idea of this very narrow structure of how relationships should be and how men and women should act, unfortunately, has nothing to do with the reality of us as a species.
I think on top of that, I think some people it's comfortability. It makes you just want to just deal with this one person, And
that's how I am. That's why I'm a serial monogamist, is because I just prefer to focus on one person. I've had moments where I've dated multiple people at the same time, but those were few and far between. Most of the time, once I start dating a woman, I just want to focus on her, and I'm content with that. It's in perfect alignment with who I am and what I am as a person, and those times where I've deviated and dated multiple people, that was okay too, because that was right for me in that moment. It's actually two times. It's two times in my life where I went through a short period where I dated multiple people, and I was fine with it because I wasn't trying to do anything different. It's just how it worked out, and it was in perfect alignment with me. And that's really what all of this is about, is being in alignment with our humanity rather than the judgments that get handed down. Like, I think women have it far more difficult than men do in this specific area, because you're judged for everything. If you have a sexuality, you're judged for it. If you are sexual in your behavior, you're judged for it. And what happens is that the poison gets passed between you and among you. Like, if you're talking to another woman and you're talking to her about being too easy, then that's just the brainwashing that religion and society hit you with, that you just pass on to somebody else, unintentionally, of course, but that's the programming that a lot of people are suffering under.
I think it's good to date multiple people. I can't agree with you on that. That way you can know exactly what you want, what you don't want. You don't want to be just secluded to this one person, unless that was just your soulmate at an early age, and that's pretty much all you knew and everything. Yeah. But I think go out, meet new people, see different, walks of life and everything. Yeah. See what you, and again, that's why, I don't know, like, I think in this day and age, people are temporary for me, you know, and I used to have this mentality where I was like, I want to just only date one person at a time. But I came across this post that said it's okay to date multiple people. If you're not in a relationship with nobody, just do whatever you feel like doing. And I'm like, wow, okay,
right.
That makes sense.
Right. And the fact that post resonated with you is because of the programming that you had prior to seeing that. Because you're told it's not cool to do that. You're told, you know, especially if you're a woman, you know, if a woman has a healthy sexual appetite and healthy sexual behavior, very often she's going to be labeled a slut for that. And that concept is ridiculous to me. There's no such thing as a slut. There's just a woman who enjoys sex. You know, and you know, I joke around that, you know, I love sluts. They've been very good to me. So, you know, I don't have a problem with that.
Have you ever turned one into a housewife?
You know, again, that's an idea that doesn't resonate with me, because I don't believe in the concept of a housewife. I don't believe in the concept of a soulmate. I think that's just a romantic notion that people have come up with. And again, if it contributed to people's happiness, I'd be fine with it, but it stresses people out because what tends to happen is, and I've had this conversation many times with coaching clients and with people privately, is that, someone will meet someone and it's working just fine. But then in the back of their mind, they're going, well, but is this my soulmate? Right? And then they got to figure out what that means, because what does a soulmate actually mean? And isn't it interesting that people who say they've met their soulmate, it's convenient that it's usually someone from their town, someone they went to school with, someone they went to work with. How convenient is it that the universe arranged their life so that their soulmate was 5 miles from them? You know, I mean, it seems kind of silly when you think about it that way.
No, I mean, and what you're saying is actual factual, but you know what? I don't know. I've heard that you have multiple soulmates in your lifetime,
and that's convenient too.
I've had someone, I asked if they ever met their soulmate. They say, yeah, like I was married to them, and then it just ended. I'm like, then that person wasn't your soulmate then.
So how do we decide who is? If someone decides that they want to go before God and society and say, I'm committed to you for life, and that turns out to be not their soulmate, then maybe we have to rework this whole idea.
I think my definition of a soulmate, because I made this post yesterday actually. Made this post yesterday, and I had said to my soulmate, I hope I still have a soul by the time you get here, right? And because I'm telling you, man, I become a bitter woman, and I'm not even 30. I'm halfway to 30, and it's like a lot of the men are just waste my time. But with that being said, I think my definition of a soulmate is someone where it's like I think about Tyler Perry. All right, Tyler Perry would make these, you know, very predictable movies. And one of the first movies that he made that came out was Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm about to just misquote the lines. So basically she was saying towards the end, she says that, you know, I can't, you know, stop thinking about you. You're in my every thoughts. You know, I pray for you all the time. You know, and stuff like where he was thinking the same type of stuff, you know, where it just happens so effortlessly that you guys come together, and it's like it's a natural high you get around that person. You know, they get you type of stuff. Maybe you guys finish each other's sentences. I don't know. You know, do you believe in life partners, or do you not believe in that either?
Well, no, not specifically. What I believe in is that it's the old saying of it takes two to tango, and I've tagged it with, but it only takes one to end the dance, right? And whenever the dance is over, it's over. But if today I wake up and I want to be with the woman that I want to be with, and the woman wants to be with me, then we're good, right? Because if you think about it, when a relationship ends, it's yesterday you were with that person and today you're not, right? So it's what a difference a day makes, right? As the old song goes. So my pragmatic brain says that the only thing that matters is today. And if you stay in enough todays, then it becomes a lifetime, I suppose. But, I don't see the utility in just identifying someone as a life partner. Life can be long. As short as it is, it can be long also. And you don't know what's going to happen. But if I know that I want to be with this person today and they want to be with me, that's the only thing that matters.
No, and that's real. I don't know. I guess one day I'm gonna be in a real relationship, because I for so long was a situationship queen, and I just really kept trying to figure out, is there something wrong with me? Because it would drive me into depression. That I wasn't where I was supposed to end up being, that I didn't have who I thought I would have.
Yeah.
But I have to learn that in due time it'll come, and if it doesn't come, you have to be okay with that. Because yes. I've come across people in they like 60 who's never been in no real relationship, and it makes me wonder. I'm like, something has to be wrong with you. If you have made it to 60, you pass the AARP age. By 55, you get free pancakes at IHOP, and you don't have a real relationship.
Yeah, sir,
that's not good.
Yeah, and I'm 57, and I've mostly had real relationships. I mean, you refer to your other relationships or previous relationships as situationships. In my mind, if I were coaching you, I would tell you that they were all real relationships. To me, every relationship that I'm in, long or short, contributes something to me, in one way, shape, or form. Even if it's just to make a distinction about what I don't want, that's a contribution. And I also agree with the idea that it's you, right? That's where it starts. And I don't mean you specifically you, I mean the in general, right? But you are encompassed within the general you, right? So with everybody, if they have questions and concerns and issues in their relationships, the first place I start is with the person and their responsibility and how they show up in life. And I did this myself when I was 26. I realized that I had 5 train wreck relationships in a row. They were more like hostage situations than anything else. And I said, well, yeah, these chicks were crazy, and that's undeniable, but I invited them into my life, and I have to figure out why I did that and how to stop doing that. And when I got to the end of that cycle, which took a year to figure out, what I realized is that if I wanted a different relationship, I had to be a different person. And then I spent from then until now, figuring out how to do that. And I've done it successfully. I've become the person that I need to be to attract the kind of woman that I want to be with. And I am with that woman. So it all worked out, but it took a long time, of figuring out, exactly what I'm about in order to make that happen.
You mentioned that, don't call your situationship like no type of real relationship. In my mind, I was thinking that we were together, but in their mind, we had nothing going on. In my mind, I was exasperating all my energy to them. But they weren't, they were just using me for whatever that they were using me for.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one way to characterize it. And with that language, I could see where your bitterness comes from. But if you look at it from a different perspective, it could be as simple as you were on different pages, right? And they weren't doing anything to you. They were just doing what they were doing, and you weren't doing anything to them. You were just doing what you were doing. Because and I focus on language because our self-talk is very impactful. How we tell the story of our life can be very impactful, and the words that we choose to do that can make the difference between how, feeling positive about something, feeling negative about something, and developing beliefs that are very negative that, unchecked can be real roadblocks in your life.
No, and that what you're saying right there, that's very true. That's actually very true as well. I don't. Again, I don't want to make it seem like I was sounding bitter or anything else like that.
You called yourself bitter.
No, I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why. Because what happens is I have a lot of men who come into my life just to see if they can, we live in a day and age. So you can just follow me as I say this. We live in a day and age where a lot of guys are not really dating. Like, I'm born and raised out here in Atlanta. I don't know, maybe the Atlanta growing up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, where music was worth listening to, was the best time to have gone on dates and really been with someone. But in this day and age, this is not a relationship city. The ratio, if you want to be a bachelor, you can have 10 to 1, 10 women to 1 man. Okay, that's beautiful. Come on now. So this, number one, we're not in a relationship city. So you're dealing with a bunch of what you doing, where you at, let's chill type of guys. You're dealing with guys who are older, who are like the very first, and now mind you, I like a man, I think basic life skills should be imputed into every child. If you know how to cook, that's beautiful. I want a man who knows how to cook. Right? Came across one guy who told me, and this is after a few days of having a conversation, he mentions how he wants me to come to his house to cook for so he can cook for me. And I'm scratching my head, and I'm like, bro, why do you even think that this is okay? I don't even know what your first and last name is, and vice versa, right? And the fact that you're trying to get me to come to your house to cook for me, that to me is like stranger danger. The fact that a lot of guys will put, send me a pic and can I get some money? And it's like, whatever. It, to me, it's like, it gets annoying, and that's what makes me bitter against men. And the fact that men will just come in my life and, have no type of conversation worth having at all. And this is what makes me bitter and makes me upset. And that's why I get straight to the point. Like I was saying, the first few minutes of the conversation, I will let a guy know up front. This is what I want. If you know you can't meet that requirement, do not waste my time. Because if you try to waste my time, I will hound you until you block me. That's how I am, So that's it. I don't mean to be that way. But I'm not the only woman suffering with this. It's a lot of women suffering with this.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that there are a lot of women, men also, but in this particular case, for this example, I'll focus on women. They are operating under these faulty presuppositions that have been given to them all their lives about who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to be. And these ideas don't have merit, and they don't work, and they don't contribute to your happiness. They just contribute to your sadness and suffering. So what I would say is start with you and examine these ideas, because my question to you would be, why are men approaching you in the way that they're approaching you?
I know why.
Since we can't put the responsibility on them, then if the responsibility is on you, then maybe it's something about you that is.
It's a lottery analogy. That's the answer. I've asked multiple men.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lottery analogy. They try to, men will, a lot of guys find me attractive. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's grab them hot commodity. A lot of guys find me attractive. So what it is it's a lottery analogy. They will sit here and slide in my DM because they think, and on top of that, I'm a comedian. Some of my posts are sexually charged, but it's hilarious. If you know me for real, you know that I'm not about that life. So I don't know what you in my DM for. I make sure I dress accordingly. I don't put myself out there or whatever. But like I said, it's because it's a lottery analogy. It's worked before. There are women out there who don't mind having a bum dude, and once that relationship passed, they say, okay, let me try with Kyndra.
Yeah.
Okay, if Kyndra says no, I'm gonna try the next few people. It works. It's a lottery now.
But and again, the language that you're using is a strong indicator of some of the things that are blocking they're blocking you from getting what you want. This idea of a bum dude and all that. There's all these judgments that are going on. And again, I understand them because this is the prescription. This is what society has handed you. And despite people wanting to believe that they're individuals and, march to the beat of their own drum, most people do not do that. Most people are the product of their upbringing and the society that they live in. You know, if you were living in Afghanistan, or if you were living in France, or if you were living in Sweden, chances are you'd have different attitudes about this, because they do have different attitudes about this. But because you're in America, you have the American system of beliefs, and unfortunately, that system of beliefs generally doesn't work for people. That's why there's so many unhappy people, especially in the realm of relationships, because there's so much garbage that's just heaped on people about how things should be, that nobody is paying attention to how they actually are.
No, that's true. Maybe, you know what? I might have to go find some love out there in Dubai. I think that's what. So if you see me, I'm gonna go hang out in Dubai for a couple months and see if they do something different. Because like I said, I think here in America, everybody's perception of love is different. You know, we all every adult wants someone who can do honesty, loyalty, respect, communication. Yeah. But you don't have everybody to, you know, give that. Or what happens is people will pray and ask God to send them somebody, and God sends the person, and you mess it up. You know,
well, and they say, as you have, that they want honesty, but then when honesty is presented, then they realize that their programming is preventing them from accepting that honesty. You know, so it really is, to me, about changing the narrative. I don't know if the Middle East is going to be a good spot for you with their attitudes toward women. Or it could be
Amsterdam. It could be Amsterdam.
Amsterdam would probably be better.
Or I can go to Miami, find me a nice little Cuban zaddy, and then learn some Espanol with them and whatnot.
There you go. That could be a better strategy. But I would say just really examine the narrative. When you hear judgmental language coming out of you, try to figure out where that comes from and whether that actually is valid. Because I find most of the judgments that are presented by people about this subject just don't really hold any validity.
No, and that's true. And that's what I'll definitely do. You know, everything is a work in progress and process and everything. So, yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to sound condescending at all, but I've been 25. Which is what I assume you meant by halfway to 30, not that you're 15 years old, right? So at 25, I was a very different human being. And I can look back and see the big difference between how I was then and how I am now. And of course, that was on purpose, because at 23 is when I started self-development, and I've been at it for 34 years now. So I can see where my narrative at 25 was limiting my growth. And it was only until I changed the narrative that my growth was possible. You know, like I had described earlier, of realizing that the main, the most consistent factor in all of my dysfunctional relationships was me. Right? So then I had to figure out how to change that. And the only way to change that was to change me. So, you know, if you want different results, obviously it makes no sense to keep doing the same thing. That's what Einstein taught us, right? The definition of insanity, it was either Einstein or Freud. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And, you know, in order to get different results, you got to start doing different things. And again, I would start with the narrative. Listen to your thoughts about this subject, about how things should be. And, you know, since you're already studying psychology, look into the behavioral stuff of early human beings to understand what we are really, without all these rules and concepts and religious ideas. And once you get to how people really are, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions about what to do.
And you know what? Again, you're at a much, you're older, you're wiser.
Hopefully.
So, you should not have the same mentality that you had 30 years ago.
Yeah. Muhammad Ali said if a man is the same at 50 as he was at 20, he just wasted 30 years.
He did.
Yeah.
He really did.
So thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I followed my instincts from the one video that I saw. I was like, oh, I think she has interesting ideas about relationships, and I wasn't disappointed.
I got plenty. I got plenty.
So thank you very much. Please tell us where we can find you online.
Yes, Instagram is The Kyndra Crump Show. So D as in the, KY, N as in Nancy, DRA, CRU, M as in Mary, P's and Paul Show, SHOW. My YouTube is Kyndra Crump, KYNDRA. And then space CRUMP, and then my podcast, the same name as my Instagram, the Kyndra Crump Show podcast.
Excellent. I'll make sure to put all those in the video description so people can find you. Once again, everybody, this has been an installment of Chocolate Chat. Peace, love, and granola, and we'll talk to you soon.